Hey there, my name is Elsia Bang, and welcome back to my channel. If you have been following me for a while, then you know that a couple years ago I released a three-part video series, and it was essentially a series of testimony videos. And the last of the trilogy was called My Law School Testimony, and it was all about how God got me into law school. And today it is kind of crazy that I'm sitting here and recording this video, but essentially today's video is my law school testimony at the other end of the story. I finished handing in my last assignment this past weekend, and your girl is officially done law school. Whoa. That's so crazy to say. I can't believe how quickly the past 3 years just completely breezed by. And when I look back now, God's faithfulness throughout has just been so evident. And it's really been on my heart to come back and let you guys know how God got me through. In that last video, I was struggling with a lot of fears. I didn't necessarily think that law school was for me. I had quite a lot of imposter syndrome. I wasn't sure how I was going to just survive the process, but God was faithful. God was faithful, and I've come back to testify. So in this video, in this particular testimony videos, there's going to be 3 chapters. Chapter 1 is going to outline my first year of law school. Chapter 2 is going to outline my second year of law school. And chapter 3, you guessed it, is going to outline my final year of law school and the process that God has taken me through. So let's start with my first year. So in my first year of law school, we started actually in August of 2023, and it all began with orientation.
It is day 1, orientation. I am at Allard Law School. I just got here, and this is insane. So there's some ladies over there with green t-shirts. I believe that they're the ones who are gonna lead us. So to God be all the glory, and yeah.
I was green behind the ears. I was being given a tour of the school. We had upper years that were taking us around and answering our questions and giving us tips and tricks about campus. There were, of course, inspiring speeches from the dean and from various professors. We were basically being given Law School 101. And it was a great time. I still remember the weather was beautiful. Folks were taking pictures. There was this buzz of excitement and perhaps even a little bit of nervousness as well, because we were all first years, a cohort of 200 students, and we were all starting this journey together and didn't really quite know what to expect. There was one particular academic success session where I remember one of the presenters telling us that, you're all high achievers. You're all coming here because you're excellent and you're used to getting top grades and things like that. But perhaps it's best to lower your expectations now that you're in law school. She was saying things about how it's really difficult to excel in law school. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. And if for whatever reason you are struggling, know that even though it might be tough to excel at law school, it's also really, really hard to fail. So if you need help, ask for help. And if you need help, ask for help, and basically don't suffer in silence, because the only students who do really, really poorly are the ones who don't reach out for help, who don't ask for academic concessions, who don't let people know that there's something going on at home. So she just really emphasized taking care of ourselves, our mental health, because fair enough, the legal profession is very well known for its substance use issues and high divorce rates and burnout, frankly speaking. So I think they were just trying to get in ahead of that and set our expectations so that we wouldn't be devastated. But I did find that academic success session was actually quite stressful for me, because I had come in, basically with a promise from God that he would help me excel. It would help me get through this. And on my first day, when I'm already feeling inadequate, I'm kind of hearing lower your expectations. Like, it's really hard to excel in law school. So that was really difficult for me to hear. And yeah, I just felt like a lot of fear and a lot of exhaustion by the end of the day. And one of the exercises that they had us do was to actually write a letter to ourselves at like for the end of the year. So we were having our first day of law school, and then on the last day of exams, they would give us these letters for us to read and kind of see how far we've come. So I looked at that letter a couple months ago, and long story short, in that letter, I was basically saying, God, like, it's my first day. I'm already exhausted. I'm tired. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I'm scared. All these different things. And let's just say that there was a lot on my mind. There was a lot on my mind. In addition to general fears of inadequacy and the new terrain, I was also really scared about how I was going to maintain my faith while being a law student. I say that because if you've watched my salvation testimony, which is also on my channel, in high school, I had, grown up Christian, but when I got to high school, I met with some really smart people. And after speaking to them, I just found myself really doubting my faith. And by the time I was finishing up high school, I was pretty much agnostic. And it wasn't until the Lord radically saved me at the age of 19 while I was in my first year of university, or first or second year of undergrad, that I actually came back to my faith and started like walking with the Lord again. So by the time I got to law school, I'd been walking with the Lord for a few years, and my relationship with God was really important to me. And I was scared that I would, sort of end up in this same cycle where I meet with a bunch of smart people. Of course, it's law school. You're going to meet with a bunch of smart people, and then be reconvinced that God wasn't real.
Hey guys, it is Editing Elsie here, and I just wanted to take a couple moments to speak to the point about how scared I was that I was going to lose my faith when I was in law school. In hindsight, looking back, I feel like I really had nothing to fear because God just continues to make himself more and more real to me throughout the journey. And you guys are going to get glimpses of that as the video continues and as the other videos come out. But it just showed me how invested God is in keeping us close to him, in walking us through various journeys in our lives. And yeah, it doesn't mean that we won't have tough moments or have doubts or have questions, but he really is the one who will finish the work that he began in us. He really is the one who is able to keep us from stumbling and present us blameless before his glorious presence with exceeding joy. He really is the one who works in us to will and to do for his good pleasure. Everything is from him and to him and for him and through him. And I just feel like he just continues to reinforce that. And when I feel like I am inadequate, or when I feel like I in myself am falling short, he just continues to fill every area of lack with himself. So maybe somebody else was struggling with similar fears. This interlude was just to remind you to be encouraged and to let you know that you're not alone.
So because of all these sort of things, right, all these sort of fears and preconceived notions that I was coming in with, I would say that I wasn't really connected to the law school, especially in that first semester. I was also a commuter, so it took me about an hour and a half or an hour and 15 minutes to commute to school, and another hour and 15 to commute back from school. And so I didn't really linger around for social events. If you've been a first year at law school, you know that there's lots of firm-sponsored events and networking opportunities for you to get to know the different firms in the area. They're, of course, also scouting you and just getting their names out there so that in second and third year you apply to work with them, right? So I wasn't really going to these events. I think looking back now, I went to one firm-sponsored event in my entire first year of law school. And I also wasn't that proactive about making friends in my small group. I spoke to people, we were cool, but in terms of like really diving in and investing and having those like deep friendships, I didn't really do a good job of that. And so I think in that first semester was, I'd say, doing law school, quote unquote, alone. I was really keyed into my personal community, my church community, my friendships, but not very keyed into law school. The one saving grace that I did have, though, was that I had a really amazing legal buddy. And so a legal buddy is basically a program that the Allard School of Law set up so that first years would be paired with upper years, and the upper year could basically be your first point of contact and a mentor, essentially, for you to navigate law school. And I'm so fortunate that I had a fantastic one. We gelled so well. She was so intentional. I remember she would schedule coffees with me. She would grant me insights into the best places to study, insights about different profs. She would answer my questions. She would answer my, apprehensions about law school. She gave me success strategies. She was phenomenal. And I always felt supported by her. And so I always sort of had her whenever I was in a cinch. I needed some help. The other great thing that happened was that because of my dedication and my mission to stay keyed into my faith, I also looked into whether there was any Christian sort of law student communities at the law school. And looking online, I saw that there was one, but there wasn't really any means for me to find out, how to sign up with them or how to contact them. So during clubs day, when all the clubs had their booths and we got to sort of peruse and check out the different clubs that existed at the school, I was dead set on finding where that Christian club was, and I couldn't find it. Finally, I asked around, and one gentleman heard me and was like, "Are you looking for the Christian club? I know where it is. I'll be your shepherd." And it was so funny, but he was so sweet, and he took me to this table. No decorations, just 2 sheets of paper on a table and a student behind the desk. And the student basically explained, "Hey, I am the president of both the Christian club and another club. Which one are you here to sign up for?" I signed up for the Christian club and was actually slightly surprised to find out that the president of the Christian club was also a fellow first year student. But he had explained eventually that there was a third year student who had explained to him that after COVID-19, the numbers of the Christian club really dwindled. And so this person who was graduating this third year had asked him whether he'd be willing to keep the club alive. He'd basically handed over the baton to him and told him that, this is a club that was not only, existent here at UBC, but also it was a club that was affiliated with a national organization of Christian lawyers and law students called the Christian Legal Fellowship. So that's how I found out about the Christian Legal Fellowship for the first time. And, our specific club chapter at UBC for that first year was really small. We didn't have any upper years really to ask too many questions to. The third year that we had been connected to had graduated by the end of the first semester and sort of like gone on to start his articles. So there was a little bit of a disconnect there. And so we spent most of first year just in a room, meeting together once a week, sharing lunch together and just chatting. It was usually about 3 to 6 students at any given time. But it was so beautiful. It's beautiful how God can move in even the smallest things and how powerful something as simple as sharing lunch, breaking bread together, and talking can be. I remember we'd find ourselves at various points in law school, reading some tough cases that challenged our faith and just having that community to go to and say, "Hey, are you guys also struggling with this?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, we are." And just talking through that really helped. And just being able to pray for one another and things like that was amazing. So I feel like with an amazing legal buddy and the Christian Legal Fellowship Club, I was pretty much set. And that really helped me to get through my first year. So thinking a little bit now more so to the academic side of things, I always tell first year students that first semester is just a semester of learning. And not just learning in terms of substantively what you're being taught in class, but also just learning how you learn. Because law school is very different from undergrad, and usually I find that people's study strategies change in law school and are not necessarily the same as they were in undergrad. Also, you're learning the culture. You're learning about your cohort and the other people you're learning about. This was my first time at UBC and at Allard specifically. So you're also learning about the culture of the law school. There's so much that you're learning and trying to figure out. So it can be overwhelming. And then at the same time, you're being thrown all these events and opportunities and things like that. And if you struggle with FOMO, it's really bad because you never really want to miss out. But it can also be exhausting because you're only human. You only have so much time and energy. So it's definitely important to think about early on what's important to you, what are you willing to set aside, and what are you willing to hone in on and really focus on, so that you're not stretching yourself too thin. For me personally, one of the things that I struggled with was keeping up with the readings. I am not the fastest reader. I'm trusting God to become faster, but I really, really struggled with keeping up with readings. And the candid truth is, I just didn't. Especially in my first year, but also to some degree, if I'm being very honest with you guys, throughout my law school journey, readings were something that I had to learn to become more efficient with. And I don't think I ever did all the readings for any course. I was comforted by the fact that many people had a similar story. They're like, yeah, like it's almost impossible to do all the readings. But that doesn't mean if you're a first year or your second year or third year and you're listening to this, that doesn't mean that I'm encouraging you not to do your readings. Please don't take it like that. But if you are struggling, know that you're not alone, because I did too. The other thing was that I wasn't the fastest typer. And so I was handwriting all my notes in my first year of law school, and especially that first semester. And towards the end of the semester, I remember they began explaining to us that how law school exams work, at least at the time, was that we'd have these 3-hour exams and we'd be allowed to have notes, right? Condensed, annotated notes printed out in a binder. And it's an open book exam, so we can refer to our notes and sort of like write the exam. That might be changing now with AI, but at the time, that's how the system was. So I didn't know how I was going to convert all my handwritten notes into condensed annotated notes to be printed and put in a binder. I didn't know how I was going to summarize all my notes. And by the time I had come to that realization, it was already too late in the semester for me to do anything. And I honestly just felt like I was in big trouble. I felt like I was in huge trouble. But the Lord came through for me, because I discovered that there were upper year notes that you could refer to and edit and use. And there were various times when the Lord just had me in situations where upper years were kind enough to share their notes with me. I remember once being in a hallway and just sitting down, and I was about to go home or something like that. And I just felt like the Holy Spirit impressed upon my heart, don't leave yet, just stay. Don't leave yet, just stay. And I was waiting and sitting and feeling really silly about doing that, when all of a sudden these 2 upper years came up and they're like, hey, like, are you okay? And I was talking with them, and the conversation just basically went to exams and, the different things that I was struggling with there. And one of the upper year students said, hey, like, for that one course, I actually have condensed annotated notes for that. Would you like me to send them to you? And when I tell you, those notes were so helpful, and I was able to make some edits, because of course from year to year, sometimes professors change content. But for the most part, the way she formatted them, the way she like did the notes, it saved me hours of time. And it was in such a way that was excellent for my learning, because of course we all have different learning styles, but the way she formatted it made so much sense to me. And in fact, afterwards, even for like my second year and onwards, whenever I was making a can on my own, I usually used that format. Because it was so good. So that was one instance in which like the Lord saved me hours on a course and I was able to catch up. I also remember in that first semester, having an instance where I was so behind in another course, right? I was so behind, and there were so many cases and materials. I had no idea how I was going to pull myself together and, one, understand the content, because I didn't understand it. But two, also how I was going to put all the notes together in a way that made sense. And I remember I was sitting on a bus and I just saw one of my classmates, and I felt like the Holy Spirit impressed upon my heart. Ask him for help. Ask him for help. And so, a little bit nervous, we weren't that close, but I reached out to the classmate and I was like, hey, I'm really struggling with this one particular course. Would you be willing to essentially like go through a practice exam with me, or like teach me? And he said yes. And believe it or not, we went through a past exam together. And it was so helpful. I learned so much. And guess what? I wrote that December exam, and what was on the exam were almost the exact same issues as the issues that were on the past exam that we did. Crazy. It could have only been God. I even remember another time when I was going through, I remember another time when I was preparing for an exam and I just knew I was running out of time. And my teacher had told us that there were going to be, for one of the questions, it was going to be either one issue or another issue. And she'd given us the topics. And I was running out of time. It was the morning of the exam. And I asked the Lord, I was like, what should I study? What should I study? What should I study? And I heard one of the topics, right? So I went for it. I studied that particular topic. And guess what was on the exam? Exactly that topic. So it's things like that that just show that God really is invested in you. God speaks, God answers, God is there, God is leading, He's guiding, He desires to be the lamp unto our feet and the light unto our path. He desires to be the voice behind us saying, this is the way, walk in it, right? And so I had like so many of these little moments that honestly, they were huge moments that guided me through my law school journey. Another moment that was really difficult for me, especially in my first year, was when we had to hand in our papers for two particular courses in my first term. We had two papers, and one of them was especially grueling. And coming from my undergrad, I had a history of being a procrastinator and leaving things to the last minute. And I didn't realize how much more work law school assignments are and how woefully unprepared I was for the task. So I think this time for the paper, I had started, I think, somewhere around like 3 days before, which for me was already a testimony. I was like, wow, I didn't leave it to the night before. I'm starting 3 days before. That's more than enough time for me to ace this. And oh my gosh, I remember I spent time at the library. I spent 12 hours at the library, guys, with my friend. And at the end of those 12 hours, I had nothing substantial on the page. I was doing a lot of readings because I hadn't been doing my readings, right? So I had to read to know what to write. And by the end of the 12 hours, there was very little on my page. And I remember getting a little bit worried about that, but I just hopped back on the bus, went home, woke up early again the next day, and went back at it. Another 12 hours. Almost nothing on the page. It's Sunday. I've been working on this paper. Essentially, I started working on it in earnest yesterday, Saturday, around 8 a.m. basically. I stayed at the library until around 8:30 p.m. So that was about 12 hours. Today I was at the library at around 9 a.m. Got started around 9:35 or 9:25, and it's 9 now, so we're about to hit the 12-hour mark again. Working on this paper. It's a 4,000 word paper. I'm at about 1,400 words. And honestly, right now, I'm still not sure what my thesis is. So what am I really writing? At some point, I found that I was really struggling with the topic that I had chosen, but I had such little time left that I didn't think that I could switch my topic, right? But I was really making no headway on this paper. And God is so kind because He made sure that He planted so many seeds for me to finally have the courage to decide to switch topics eventually. So what had happened was that there was one time I was in the law students lounge and I was speaking to an upper year, and she was talking about how she had also struggled with this particular paper and how her only regret was that she hadn't switched topics to something that she felt she could actually write about, because she felt like she would have done a lot better on that paper. So she had said that, And that was like a while, before, I was in my particular predicament, but it had planted a seed. And then I was at the library. It was the night, I believe it was the night before the paper was due or something like that. And I was with my friends and I decided to take a stretch break. I was walking away, and I ran into another classmate, and I was talking to that classmate about how he was finding the paper. And he told me that he had decided, I think it was like the day before or something, to switch his topic, and that now he was making a lot more headway. So we pair what he said with what the upper year said. And then this other saying came to my mind. And it was a saying that goes, how does it go again? If somebody's going in the wrong direction, then essentially it's something along the lines of like, if you're going in the wrong direction, the person who saves time is the person who turns around the quickest. Like the person who turns around the quickest to go in the right direction saves more time than the person who like keeps running forward in the wrong direction. So I decided to make the switch. Now, fortunately for me, our paper due date was actually extended by 1 day because the profs wanted us to attend class the next day. So they said, we'll give you an extension, just make sure you attend class. So we all got that extra day extension. That was amazing, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. I was working at it. I was making a lot more headway with this particular topic, but it was still not like easy, and I wasn't done. So I remember I was working, and finally, at that point, I'd had about 1 hour sleep in a 24-hour period, and my body was shaking. There was no way I could continue. And it was about 6 a.m. the morning that it was due or something like that. And I just knew like I had to sleep. Like I wasn't making sense anymore. And me pushing through was not going to help. So I slept. And when I woke up, I just knew like the deadline had passed. And I just cried. I just woke up, I cried. My roommates, my sister, they were like comforting me, encouraging me. I was just crying because, in law school, that first day that you miss your assignment, that's a 5% deduction. But in a school where your grade is already getting curved, a 5% deduction is not small. And I was already exhausted and I wasn't sure when I was going to finish. And I decided to call my legal buddy. Like I said, she's amazing. I called my legal buddy and, it's so funny because she told me, Elsie, law school is not like undergrad. Don't procrastinate. And she, and I called her and I was like, yeah, like I procrastinated. You were so right. And she told me that I could actually call and ask for an academic concession, that there was no guarantee that I would get it, but at the very least I should call, see if I could, and then keep pushing, keep writing. So I reached out to academic services and they told me how to submit an academic concession form. I wrote it and it usually takes time, I think, for the chair to get back to you. I got such a speedy reply. I was granted the extension and oh my gosh, like it could have only been God. It could have only been God. And so I got that extension. I had a fresh wind and I just kept pushing. And finally, I finished that paper 2 minutes before the deadline and I submitted it. And was it my best grade in law school? Absolutely not. But was it a miracle that I even got through? Absolutely yes. And did I learn a big lesson? Absolutely yes. There are so many points in my journey and in my first year where the Lord took me through, and I took videos of them, and so I might sprinkle a couple in here and take you guys through those stories from Elsie in first year. It's always a lot better when the person who was actually there at the day and time can testify because the emotions were fresh. So let's take a look at a couple of those.
Just making a very honest video. By God's special grace, I have written 2 law school exams, one on Monday, which is torts, the other one on Wednesday, which was property. Tomorrow's Friday. and it's contracts, and I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore, but what am I supposed to do? The exam's happening regardless. So yeah, we're studying. Yeah, just wanted to be honest. I don't think I have anything else to say. I have to keep studying. That said, I have a lot of hope that God's promises to me are going to be fulfilled, regardless of what it looks like. Yeah. I will excel. I will excel in tomorrow's exam. I have excelled in my past 2 exams. I will excel in Monday's exam. And I'll be free for a few weeks. Then just 2.5 years to go. Yeah. Yeah. I'm learning a lot though. And some of the cases are really fun. So, okay, now I'm just stalling. But I hope future LC watches this. I wonder where we're going to be. Maybe I'll watch this like my 2nd year or something and be like, well, like we actually, find this so much easier now or whatever. Hey guys, so it is April 15th and I'm heading to the library right now to study. Tomorrow's my first exam. It's going to be a contracts exam. But I just knew I had to make this video because the past month or so have just been miraculous. The fact that I have exams coming up and I don't feel stressed at all. I feel peace. I feel joy. I remember I was at school on the last day of classes and somebody was like, oh my gosh, like, I think it was something along the lines of like, how are you so happy or whatever? And I was just like, I choose joy. But the truth is, it's not that I just choose joy. It's that the kind of joy and peace that the Lord has imbued me with is crazy. I remember I was at church and somebody was like, you make law school look easy. And I'm like, if only you knew, if only you knew that it is not me. It is not in my own strength at all. If you guys saw me first semester, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. But this semester, his grace, his ease, like his favor, it's been honestly insane. And again, like no anxiety. The exam is tomorrow. No anxiety, nothing. Like just peace and joy. You cannot buy that. I'm so sorry. You cannot buy that. And so I just came to testify while I was still in it. Because I know I'm going to look back at this moment and just be like, wow, God really did that. So yeah, gotta go study, but I'll see you guys later. Ladies and gents, I'm on campus and I just wanted to make another video. Today is my 2nd exam, my torts exam, and I thank God. I continue to thank God. The peace is still here, guys. The peace is still here. Also just for his wisdom, my wrist has been hurting the past couple of days. And I remember yesterday I wrote a practice exam and I was like, God, this really hurts. But you gave me a word and this wrist has to write these exams. And I woke up this morning and it feels much better. And I'm very grateful for that. And yeah, after today, there's only 4 more exams left. Glory to God. Hey guys, I just wanted to hop on here quickly and just be honest and transparent and share. So my last exam is tomorrow, and I'm really excited for it to be done, not necessarily for the exam. And this is essentially like the most unmotivated I've felt. Studying has been tiring. I just want to sleep. But that's for tomorrow. That's not for today. So I decided to take a break. I went on a walk. I was listening to some encouraging confessions, praying, and just trusting that God's going to give me the strength to finish strong. Yeah. So I know He will. He's done it the last couple times. I'm just in the thick of it right now. So, yeah. Today is the day when our grades come out. So I'm about to take a look. I haven't seen them yet. And I thought I would record my reaction. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. These are really good. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm just checking some things. In every single class this term, I scored above the class average. Wow. To God be the glory. I can tell you guys right now, these grades, I ain't got nothing to do with it. But I just want to take these last 6 minutes before class to just say thank you, because God did that. God did that.
Towards the end of my first year of law school, we got more connected with the national group, and we actually found out that there was something called the Christian Legal Institute, which was run by the national team of the Christian Legal Fellowship. And this Christian Legal Institute was a 5-day program. Essentially, all expenses paid except for you have to get yourself there. If you could get yourself to London, Ontario, it was 5 days. You'd have your accommodations covered, you'd have your meals covered, and they'd essentially teach you the law from a biblical perspective, from a Christian lens. And to me, after going through a year of law school and having so many questions about how I could marry my faith and this profession, that was an unparalleled opportunity for me. I applied, I got in, and even if, by the way, even if, finances are an issue for you and you're not sure if you can pay for travel, don't let that stop you. Still apply, because there's usually like subsidies available or bursaries available. People are generous and they do donate so that students are able to make the most of these opportunities. So never let finances be the thing that stops you from going to something like this. But I digress. Back to the topic. I got to go to London, Ontario for 5 days and experience this Christian Legal Institute, and it was life changing. It was amazing. You got to meet law students from across the country, right? From all different kinds of law school. We were all there, all under the banner of Christ. And those 5 days, I learned so much. I felt like I had the language than I needed to discuss the law without having to, merely quote Bible verses. I knew that if I went to school and started saying, well, I don't think this is right. Why isn't this right? Well, because in the book of James, that wasn't necessarily going to fly, perhaps, right, in an academic setting. But here were Christian lawyers, here were Christian legal academics who had wrestled with these questions for years and who had developed language and concepts that could bridge the gap between people who, were of the faith and people who weren't of the faith. How could you share your faith in a way that's respectful? How can you engage meaningfully, even at the Supreme Court of Canada level, representing Christian values, but doing so within the framework of the legal system that we exist in? So I felt so empowered. And the biggest thing that came out of it for me was that the Christian Legal Fellowship always emphasizes that being a lawyer is a calling, that Christ has called us into this profession to be advocates, that it's not just about going to school, paying off your student loans, perhaps having a nice job, but that you're meant to shine the light of Christ wherever and whatever you do, including at the workplace. So you don't have to separate your faith and your work, but you can live both out simultaneously. You don't have to divide your personality or divide your identity or divide the different parts of you. Christ in you can continue to manifest even in the workplace, even in law school. So that for me was wonderful. I remember leaving feeling so edified. And after that, I was at all the events, the Christian Legal Student Conference, the Christian Legal National Conference. I just continue to be keyed in to the Christian Legal Fellowship. And if you are a law student who's out there in Canada and you are hoping to connect with Christian legal community, the community exists. They're great. Over 700 lawyers and law students and legal academics who are shining the light of Christ in the Canadian legal system. Sign up, become a member, reach out to me if you want to find out more. But I'm very grateful to the Lord for that opportunity. Yeah, it was great. It was great. And I made a lot of friends. The other thing that I was really struggling with towards the end of my first year was this concept of what I would do with my first year legal summer, right? Folks were coming back saying that they'd gotten jobs at law firms, especially folks who were in Alberta or who were from Alberta. They usually do a first year law firm recruit. And so some students from my small group came back and said, "Hey, I'll be working here, I'll be working there," and people were getting hired for all kinds of things. And I really wanted to work over the summer, and so I just started looking through different postings on our career services website to see what I could apply for and what I would qualify for. And I just remember feeling like the Lord was telling me to wait. And I was like, is that really the Lord? Is that just me? Am I just being lazy so I don't put in these applications? But again, I just felt that nudging in my heart, to wait on him. So I didn't really submit anything. And time kept going. And one day I was sitting in class and I just felt like the Holy Spirit tell me, go and ask your professor if he knows about any jobs in real estate. So I went up to my professor and I was like, "Hey, do you know about any jobs that I could potentially work in the real estate sector this summer as a first year student?" And my prof said, "No, sorry, actually, I don't," which was very hilarious for me. I was like, Lord? But he did go on to say that I don't have any real estate jobs or know of any real estate jobs, but I am looking for a research assistant. And he told me like the topic of research, and he asked, "Is that something you'd be interested in?" And I was like, "Yes, actually, I'd be happy to assist you with that." And he was like, "All right, great, sounds good." And then I didn't really hear anything, for like the next couple of weeks. And I was curious about whether I even had a job or like what the next steps would be. I hadn't applied. There was nothing official, But after I wrote my exam, second semester, actually, at the end of the exam, the professor, came up to me and essentially was telling me like, "Are you still interested? Like, when can you start?" This, that, and the other. And I was like, yep, still interested, like would love to do this work with you. And I was essentially hired on the spot. And just like that, I had a job for my first year summer. Today, I solidified a summer job, and the way the summer job even came was so miraculous. Literally, one day I was sitting in class, like wondering like how I'm gonna work this summer, what I'm gonna do this summer, and I just really felt like this impression in my heart from the Holy Spirit to ask my prof whether he knows about any real estate opportunities to study law or anything like that. And so I went up to him and I was just like, hey, are you aware of any real estate opportunities for a 1L this summer? And he said, no, but I might have something else for you. And so he came back the next week and was like, I have a couple of extra funds. I'm happy to take you on as a research student if you're interested in this topic. And the topic was something that I'm genuinely interested in. And so I'm really excited about that. And today, finding out that the pay is even better than I thought it would be. It's remote work, it's flexible. My supervisor is amazing, such a kind person. And I couldn't have asked for something better. I'm able to work the entire summer. And so that is provision that I would have never had otherwise. And I am just blown away. I'm just honestly blown away by how God is providing. And I'm so grateful. And I just wanted to come on here and say, thank you, Jesus. Thank you so much. I was so scared that I wouldn't have anything or that I wouldn't be able to make an income. And in fact, this was a lot better suited for me than a law firm position, which would have been full time. This was an hourly position. I could work as much or as little as I needed. And because I ended up deciding to do a summer course over the summer, it also helped because I could be flexible with my time around my course load as well. So it ended up being amazing. And I mean, throughout this video, you've heard so many different testimonies, so many different ways in which the Lord has come through. And all I'm trying to really say in this is that it might not look exactly the same for you, but if God has sent you somewhere, find rest in the fact that He's with you and He's already made a perfect plan for you to get through any obstacle that may be in your way. My regret for my first year of law school was that I just wasn't more at peace. My regret is that I just didn't trust Him more. My regret was that I didn't just relax and enjoy myself more because He already had it, and my worrying didn't add a single thing to the situation except make me enjoy the experience less. In the end, looking back at that first year, everything worked out. And if you're worried about first year of school for yourself, or perhaps you're in a different season of your life, know that God is faithful. He saw me through, and He'll see you too. And He'll see you through too. So with that being said, we'll end off chapter 1 here and look forward to sharing more about chapter 2. See you guys then.